Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Season 3 of the Fanfiction Tapes. I'm your host today, Maya, pronouns she, her, and today I am joined by...
Dylan, the he, him guy, hello.
I like how you're just doing that every time now.
I mean, yeah, I don't have anything else unique about me, so I gotta get in where I can.
Remember our promise.
And I'm Ian, our producer, also he, him.
What the fuck was that?
What was what?
Oh, you...
I'm going to try and ignore that as things around me get increasingly Cthulhu-esque. Today's episode topic is Arcane. Speaking of big squids, which really only makes sense if you've seen the show. If you haven't seen Arcane,
go watch it. It's good.
Yeah, when did you get replaced, man? Because you're clearly a pod person.
You know, after you lost your memories in that coma, you have to rewatch Arcane again. Come on, do it.
Arcane is a pretty popular video game adaptation that kind of took the world by storm, as prior to, a couple of years ago, if you heard video game adaptation, you went, oh, it's going to be shit.
Especially if you'd heard that it was League of Legends that was the video game being adapted.
Yeah, League of Legends, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a video game with a reputation with a capital R. Known for being made by a unscrupulous studio and with questionable business practice, as well as just kind of being a garbage game with a garbage fire community. That is the reputation it has, irregardless of how well deserved it is or not.
Have any one of us played League before? Because I haven't.
God, no.
I wouldn't be touching that with a 10-foot pole, even if I was into that genre of game.
Yeah, I've never.
I played Dota a couple times back in the day, and it's not really my thing. League,
I played maybe an hour of Dota, and the MOBA game I played was, it was the Paradox MOBA game back in the day. That's another topic.
The closest I would get to one is probably like Pokemon Unite, and I haven't even played that.
There was a Lego MMO I used to play that was that's the next closest game I've got.
So yeah,
it slapped.
We're not MOBA fans, we're not League fans. We're purely, Arcane fans.
Yeah, we came into the show from the outside.
And that should tell you, this is a show that that it stands on its own merits.
You don't need to know anything about League of Legends, as I didn't know anything about League of Legends going into it. In fact, the only thing I knew about Arcane is a mutual friend of the cast and crew here sent me a DM going, hey, Maya, so there's this League show being made, and the main two characters, basically everyone headcanons as being in lesbians with each other.
And I think you like it.
And
he knows how I am. He knows how to bait me into watching things.
Wiggled the carrot. And Maya, like a big pigeon, followed it.
So, what's it about?
Well, I mean, a lot.
A lot. The central tension of the show is between the twin cities of Piltover and Zaun. Piltover being very much it's very rich. It profited off of industry, and it's a very steampunk setting. If you like steampunk, that's another reason to watch the show. And Zaun is very much the people that have been exploited by Piltover in Piltover's pursuit of profit.
Yeah, that's the main thing. And we basically follow a bunch of characters whose stories all get intertwined with each other, flow in and out. Different people get involved and affect each other's storylines, so on and so forth, until it all gets wrapped up in a not so neatly tied bow at the end.
Yeah, one of the neat things about Arcane is that they managed to pull off not really having a true main character really well. It's almost like they spliced two shows written about different main characters and their lives and then stitched them together.
Yeah, it has like that sort of, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood thing where it's like when people meet up, it's like this feels like a crossover. The show is crossing over with itself. This is awesome.
That is a really good way to put it, actually. It's that's kind of what it feels like going on. It's every character. The characters feel so real. They all have their own shit going on. Side characters have their own stories, and it feels really great. One character, Jace, has a hell of a side story. Pretty relatable one if you're in the sciences, I'd say. It's so good.
And, with everything that happens, there are loose connections, side connections, stories that work within just the storyline itself. Once it branch out, one thing happens in one story that leads to something, a big, effect happening in another one. And it's great to watch because the world also feels living and breathing that way. You see, what happens here, and then here's a response here in another character's story. Like, that's great. And the characters themselves, all of them are very interesting, down to your minor ones to your major ones. They each have that uniqueness about them. Would describe them as quite unique. There's no,
Yeah. The music in this show is so good. The sound. If there is a thing about a particular type of media that you're a fan of, odds are really good that Arcane did it right. And they did it very right. How many awards? I'm gonna pull up the Wikipedia page now. How many awards did they win? Let's get that. I think out of the gate. Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 100% approval rating with an average rating of a 9.10 out of 10 based on 29 reviews from critics and stuff. It performed phenomenally. That's part of the reason why it has been renewed, and all that is, well, people want to keep making money off it. It's the first video game adaptation to win both Annie Awards and Primetime Emmy Awards. I'm just going to count how many awards.
17 awards, one out of, 22 nominated?
I thought I only counted 12. I'm bad at math.
You're bad at counting. You were counting up to 19, and then suddenly you were back at 13 somehow.
What?
Yeah, you were like 19, 13. I was like, huh?
To be fair, counting is difficult.
You should have said something.
I was just like, huh? I was waiting till the end. I picked my spot. But yeah, a lot of awards, like...
A shit ton, even.
And the interesting thing is the show... Like, I don't think there was, like, anticipation for Arcane. Like,
it was highly anticipated. It was all of a sudden, you wake up one morning and it's taken over the internet. Like, Tab, our mutual friend, sent me this DM. I want to say in one of the months that starts with J. January, June, or July. I don't know which one anymore before it came out.
That's a wide one.
Yes, it is. That's correct.
Time is fake.
Yes. And I'd mostly forgotten about it. I was watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood at the time that Arcane released, and I was, most of the way through it, but because I usually will watch shows with a friend. I can't watch stuff on my own, really. And then just all of a sudden, Arcane's taken over the internet. It's fucking everywhere. People are raving about it. I'm like, well, shoot, I gotta finish this. And so we blitzed through the last end of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and immediately went to Arcane, where I lost my gourd. and read and wrote a lot of Arcane fanfic.
Yeah, and it's like the show became popular based on its like merits and how good it is, and how, cool it is and everything around that, which is impressive because there are even like a lot of shows that are pretty good or very good and they still don't get like the attention. And like just seeing something like explode like that, I think, is this aided by pandemic? Does this get a pandemic boost too, or is it pre-pandemic?
This is post-pandemic. After the pandemic had started, because it released in late 21? Yeah, November 21.
Yeah.
So yeah, late pandemic.
I can do year numbers. That's still early pandemic. That's okay. Well, maybe not early, but
November 21.
Mid-pandemic.
It's still an ongoing pandemic.
It's like lockdowns are done by that point, though.
No, lockdowns were pretty heavily in place still.
In UK.
Well, okay. Lockdown was less in place, but like people were masking all the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Yeah, I was still masking for like another 6 to 8 months.
I wasn't the only person masking in my classes. At that point, yeah.
But this is still in the point where there's a lot of people at home all the time, where there's work from home or we're still like not open or whatever.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, for a while you couldn't like look anywhere online without seeing someone talking about Arcane.
And it made a lot of people make the mistake of trying to play League, probably.
Yes, it did. I've spoken with a couple people that, because I'm obviously somewhat active in the Arcane fandom, one of the early kind of supporters of the podcast was a still pretty sizable Arcane Discord that I'm theoretically active in. I'm not active at all.
You don't need to explain yourself, it's fine.
Yes, I do. I must explain what I mean by everything. I cannot be misunderstood ever. This is illegal. So, some spoiler-free reviews from all of us.
I mean, it's obviously very good. Like, it's not... probably the best show of that year. I don't remember what else came out that year. I don't remember much at all. But it's great. And what I just feel about it is not only is it unique in how it looks, how it tells its story, and I love, the way it is split. Because the thing about Arcane is it is clearly divided. Here's part 1, part 2, part 3. And you get 3 episodes of each. And you understand that and you can see, how the narrative evolves during, in the mini parts and even in the wider story then. Also being told across 9 episodes, and were they like 32 to like 50 minutes probably?
The episode length?
Yeah, probably around like those times, right? 39 to 44. 39 to 44 on average. So, that's great. You get around, 6-7 hours of content out of there. And it does, because the big criticism, right, of like shows recently is like, okay, you'll get 9-10 episodes and we'll see you in 5 years. And this is like what Arcane did for us. Arcane, like, it doesn't feel like it leaves you wanting more, but you're also satisfied with what you got. Like, I feel like a lot of the stuff, it's like, okay, I've got to wait 2 or 3 years for this thing, and I'm kind of waiting. But Arcane, it was like, you introduced me to it, you got me invested, watched it all, ended it, and I went, okay, I'm excited to see what's next, but with what we've got right now has been enough, and I'm happy.
Yeah, it was interesting of like, I've seen some fan bases that just, they go past brain rot and go into brain necrosis. Looking at you, Locked Tomb fandom. But that didn't really happen for me either. This show is just like I mean, yeah, sure, I thought about it nonstop for like, I don't know, a year. And then just, obviously I'm excited with the news of season 2. I'm looking forward to it. But like, if it got canceled, I don't think I would quite riot in the streets.
Which is
actually that's not true. I probably would.
You would. Don't lie to me. but it's odd to say. But it's like, if it was like, okay, that's the end of the show. We got nothing more for you. It'd be like, what a poignant ending! And wow,
it tells a complete story. Is I think what we're looking for. Yeah, I looked through the Rotten Tomatoes best TV of 2021, and like, because I was like, hey, what the hell came out in 2021? Because as mentioned earlier in this episode, time is fake. None of the shows on Rotten Tomatoes list, sorry Rotten Tomatoes, I'm gonna fucking call you out here. None of those shows were anywhere near as memorable as Arcane, which did not make the list, by the way. Rotten Tomatoes, I don't have anything polite to call you that Ian won't have to blurt out later.
Rotten Tomatoes, boo you whore.
Ian, that's slut-shaming. We shouldn't compare whores to Rotten Tomatoes. That's rude. To the whores, I mean. Like, come on. They have standards. They have quality. Unlike Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, just looking through. You got your, Marvel stuff, whatever. But it's just like Arcane. Wow.
Yeah, some of the Marvel stuff was alright. I didn't see all of it.
You also get like your Invincible and stuff, I think, came out as well.
Yeah, Invincible did. Invincible was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess like Falcon and the Winter Soldier was kind of okay. That one had some writing problems, though. What If was, I don't know.
And you get like
fun experimentation with AUs, but it also disrupted Google searches for one of my favorite books of all time, What If by Randall Munroe.
You get Loki season 1, which is like fine. It's pretty good.
Loki was alright. A couple of my friends brain rotted for it decently, but like, I never finished the show. It was okay.
But
I guess.
What I did want to bring up is the thing about Arcane, I think, compared to a lot of like adult animation, is Arcane is like adult with its like themes and the story it wants to tell and how these characters speak and interact and what the world is like. Whereas when I look at something like Invincible, it's like, you have some stuff, but ultimately it's the hyperviolence.
Invincible is the like 17 to 8-year-olds. This is for adults content.
Yeah, and while Invincible does have some things to say that are very interesting, very adult, it's also, look at all this blood and how the brain comes out and that hyper-violent stuff. Another show like that is like season 1 of Legend of Vox Machina, where it's like, okay, you've got too much, like hyper-violence here, and which they did tone down later.
And Harley Quinn.
Yeah, and it's like, God, this hyper-violence stuff, it's not... We've really gone to the point where I'm like, if I'm done with hyper-violence stuff, because you want to be edgy, stuff like The Boys and Invincible, like, did it all, and it's like, okay.
I'm fine with it, like, as, like, a spectacle thing when I'm going to watch something because I want a gory, violent spectacle. Because you know what? Sometimes I want that. But it can be enjoyable. At the same time, I don't want that to be everything. I want to be able to go watch, The Boys, or I want to be able to go watch something where there is more violence, but then also sometimes I just want to go and watch a show where I'm not squirming in my seat. I want to be able to just kind of watch a show with some action, have the action, and not need to look away. Which Arcane did that. It had the violence to satisfy the he who smashy brain, and it had some gore. I'm thinking in particular of the Vi Savika fight.
Yeah, but you're not having that hyper-violent stuff.
Yeah, it's not hyper-violence. I'm not seeing someone's eyeball get plucked out like in the first episode of Castlevania.
Yeah, they're not trying to be like, we're so dull because we show hyper-violence. It's more,
We're adult because we're telling stories about the real world, the way things are for a lot of people. We're telling stories about police brutality, about drug use, about sex.
Yeah, and the thing is, the hyperviolence in like other shows is all about. It's kind of a gimmick at this point, I feel like.
Yeah, it's a gimmick. It's I don't know. There's shows I think could deal with more violence, and shows I think could deal with less. Like, I don't know. This is not an episode on those shows. This is an episode on Arcane. But yeah, that is something that Arcane does well. There's blood, but like, I've probably seen more blood in real life.
Yeah. It's adult animation, and it's adult through, telling a story and not trying to be adult superficially.
I also nick myself like every day when I shave, so I do tend to see a lot of blood. I mean, it is a me problem, but my bar here may be like, in terms of volumetric blood I've seen.
Okay, honestly, if you are nicking yourself that often, you may want to consider changing how you shave, but that's not here or there.
But yeah, I feel like this, like, Arcane should be like a foundation of like the stories we try to tell and how we tell them in like an adult animation sort of way.
I mean, I think it will be, because it's...
Sure.
It's one of the first, like, adult animations that's done this, where it's, hi, hello, world, I am in charge of the internet now.
Yeah, but my point I want to make is, like, you don't need, like, excessive violence or excessive sex or even excessive language. That's another great thing about Arcane, is they don't over-rely on, we say curse words. Like, I'm not someone who gets offended, but it's about, like, use and impact. And when they do use, whatever word they need to, it's really effective. It's very effective because it's the wrestling thing of other shows kill the town. They do 100 flips, they do all the swear words, they do all the blood, and then you got to go out there and next week make a new episode, and you've already seen everything they're going to offer. You're talking about jumping the shark. Is that idea of you've killed it? You can't go any further than this.
I don't know if that's actually what jumping the shark means.
It's sort of, you set... Yeah, but this is like me using like killing the town. Killing the town, you've killed it. No one wants to see anything else because you've shown them everything already. And
like market saturation?
It's not really saturation,
or like
because it's
fatigue.
Not like... No, it's...
Killing the town is a wrestling term, right?
Yes. And the idea is you've done too much too quickly. Instead of building something and building up and having restraint, you've just thrown everything at the wall, and it was really good, but now you have nothing for next week. And that's what Arcane does well, is it hold back. It doesn't make you, you don't have an extreme fight every episode. They build to these things. And even if they do have a fight, it's small. It's like a minute. But you'll see like a 2-minute one next week.
There was also kind of that philosophy in the way that they released the show. It's all out now, so this doesn't apply anymore, but this was a bit of a unique thing. Yeah, it was a Netflix show where they didn't release the entire series all at once.
Which is what everything should do, by the way.
Yeah, no, this is a format I'm really a big fan of, because it keeps you from binging it. Which also, with the way that like the contracts,
keep you from binging it too much.
Yes, it'll allow you to, watch maybe 3 episodes a night if that's your thing, and you're able to do that. It prevents kind of fatigue of the audience, which I do think this contributed to why Arcane was so wildly popular. Is it gave the audience some time to ferment a little bit with what they were releasing before they released the next thing, which increased the production of fan content. It also, generally, with the way that the contracts for the folks who actually make the show tend to work, is better for them. That was one of the things involved with the recent SAG-AFTRA strike and WGA strikes, was the way that streaming worked. Like, the first week or two of the show, the writers and the actors and everyone didn't make any residuals off of the show, because that was negotiated back when streaming was new, and people, and I'm using air quotes here, weren't really sure if streaming was going to work out. I think that even then it would have been clear that, yeah, something like streaming had a lot of potential. Support the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA.
What I will say is how, I think it's been proven time and time again, when we do see series that are released weekly, that they do leave a lot bigger impression, and it just sort of gets better, more popular week on week. You watch something like The Last of Us when it was released on HBO, or House of the Dragon, also on HBO, compared to something like the most recent season of Stranger Things, which was even released in like 2 chunks. But even at that, it was like that sort of demand to have, 10 episodes at once that are all an hour long, or like 8 at once, whatever. It's not there as much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I do think really just the, doing... Maybe it's not a weekly release. Maybe it's, you drop a couple episodes out each week and not just 1 episode per week. It's the breathing room, that time. That's what generates the impact. Because you can make it a part of your schedule of, like with the Percy Jackson show, it's a part of my schedule of Tuesday or Wednesday nights. I watch the Percy Jackson show. That's the thing that happens right now. And for 8 weeks, I think it's less than that because they released the first 2 or 3 all at once. That's been the thing that happens.
But what if they all released it on one day? Then you watch the entire show and that's it.
I would probably still be going very insane about it because it was a huge thing for me. But it's...
Sure, but everyone else wouldn't be as much.
Not everyone else would, right? Folks who are...
You don't get to have, fan speculation about what's going to be happening next week. Like, when I was a teenager, Lost was on the air, and my whole family got into it, and friends of ours from church got into it, and so we'd have weekly watch parties between my family and them, where we'd go over and we'd watch Lost, and then we'd speculate about what was going to happen, and it would be a whole big deal every week.
Yeah, you get Lost, you get your Game of Thrones, your Breaking Bad, things that cultivated audiences that wanted to then talk about it. You don't get that with, binge watching. You just get a product and you watch the story.
The time between release of seasons is so great that, it starts to kill the audience and the community around it.
Oh, we talk about how we're in the Ruby fandom, and,
yep.
and long breaks really just sort of killed off a lot of enthusiasm as well as things happening within a company. And usually those go hand in hand. A lot of the time it's like, why is it taking a longer break? Well, the companies start doing it as well. Oh, okay.
A short break lets things ferment. After a long break, the fermentation turns to rot.
Yeah, exactly. Of just
electopause.
We'll have to wait till 25 for that one. It'll be fine. We're all gonna be very normal. Okay, but enough talking about other things. We kind of got off track with the spoiler-free reviews, but we're halfway through the episode, and I want to start getting into spoilers at some point. So, for those of you listening at home, if you haven't watched Arcane, this is your marker to stop listening to the episode. And go watch the damn show. All right. Are they gone? Or are you back? If not, and you don't really care about spoilers, dope, because we're gonna keep going on, and we're gonna start talking about details.
The next 20 minutes to half hour are just going to be all spoilers. We're not even gonna leave a timestamp for when you can come back, because we're just gonna stop caring about it from that point, from now until the end of the episode.
Also, we'd have to go back in and edit that, and that's effort.
Yeah.
Look, anything we could do to keep our poor, overworked producer from having to do more work.
Thank you. Yes.
So what are these spoiler questions we have in the bag? Because I assume one of you came prepared.
Ah, no.
Dylan, we both have ADHD. What makes you think we've ever prepared for anything?
I wrote the script this morning.
Oh, podcast host and producer of mine.
God, Jinx's story. Fuck.
Mm-hmm. What about it?
Sad. And kinda hits close to home in a couple ways. And I relate a lot to both Jinx, I say both to Jinx, Vi, and Caitlyn, as I have struggled extensively with my mental health, as I've talked about on the show before. And goddamn if that's not relatable with Jinx. I'm an older sister. I've absolutely, in some cases, had the responsibility, not anything like what gets heaped on Vi, but I can relate to that. I can understand that you are expected to be the model, you set the behavior, you set this expectation. It's relatable.
Yeah, just seeing, sort of that. And the thing as well with Jinx's story is it could come off as kind of tacky if it wasn't as good as it is. You always sort of get that with, the idea of, dual personality, or I'm represent more than one person, I have different names, whatever. I'll act different based on who I want to be. But it's done so well because I think it's pretty obvious, maybe not to the characters, but to, if you look at it, that, there was never any going back. And, Jinx isn't a separate person. She's just, the evolution of Powder. Powder and Jinx are exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go by Maya that much in the real world. I go by it a lot of times kind of online, but in the meet space, I go by my first name a lot more, mostly because in meet space, my relationships are closer to the professional world. But here, I go by my middle name. That's what I use a lot online. And that's...
I just don't bother.
Yeah, we can tell, Dylan.
Yeah, no monikers for this dude.
I mean, I think I've probably known your full name for 3 years now.
Yeah. No big deal. But yeah, that's the thing with Jinx. But it's also great as someone who was a big masker to watch a character sort of have a bit of I can see moments where where the parts of Jinx where Jinx is oh, I've got to be a little bit crazier here, or force myself to be like this. It's oh yeah, you're putting on a bit of a mask to protect yourself here. You're acting a little bit more over the top, or doing something a little bit weird because that's what you want to give off. And you can see when it breaks, and you see that real, the realness of this character that is Powder, that is Jinx. And it's great to see. And that sort of statement of how she also does wish sometimes that she can go back to sort of what it was like when she was a kid with Vi and whatever. But it's sort of having that realization that you kind of get once you go full mask off, which is like, we can't really ever go back to that now. And also, so I have it also having that realization, oh yeah, Vi, you're also not the same after being in prison for a few years, even though you still think I can be the same.
I mean, that's pretty real. That's how being in prison works.
Yeah.
I try not to get political on the podcast, and every time.
I don't think you try.
I do try.
You don't try very hard.
I don't know. I think it's been a while since we've had a real Maya political rant on here.
Look, I'm about as low on politics as I can get. This is about how I present in the workspace politically. It's maybe a little bit more open, but prisons are bad.
I mean, yeah. Fully agree. They're not used as rehabilitation tools. They are used as punishment.
Tools of oppression and slavery.
Yeah.
Slavery is still legal in the United States. Fun fact. To all of our non-American viewers, your listeners, I'm sorry for cursing you with more knowledge about the States.
The other parts are, you see, which are like true political stuff. You see, how Jace has to deal with being, someone who isn't a politician, forced into being a politician. And a lot of the time you see that Jace is very reactive and is, manipulated to be more like a politician when he probably shouldn't be, because that's not what he is. Ultimately, he's a scientist, an inventor. And how that compromises him. And, you have the sort of way that he eventually has literal blood on his hands. And that is a great thing for a politician, the representation here of like, oh yeah, we'll just go in to this place and try it and stop it, use violence to stop it. Oh, and we've had, an innocent casualty. Something, real life. something, yeah.
And I mean, also as a scientist, of like what you have to do to get funding, sometimes you have to go, I don't like ye. There's a lot of funding out there for research that comes from organizations like the U.S. military.
Yeah.
A lot of blood on their hand. That money has blood on it.
And we see, like...
Do you take it?
Yeah, and then we see, like just other stuff, and around all our scientists, like, questions of how far we meant to go with our science. And we see that with Victor and what he does, and, the steps he takes in, physically changing himself, and how he keeps on going. You see with Heimerdinger, sort of that stubbornness, and, the idea of, like, yeah, we got to just keep on working on this until it's safe, which is like, yeah, that makes sense. But unfortunately, you live in a world where people are a bit more ambitious and people want to get things
IRBs
done.
exist for a reason.
And you see with all those characters involved in that story, like, it's sort of like when you look at stuff like that, it's like when things are going good, it's okay. But as soon as something bad happens, oh god, things crumble apart pretty quickly. Because, if you look at the story and, like, the idea that we don't see, that council was perfectly fine for a few years, and they were very happy. And then one thing went wrong and everything exploded because of problems they had been ignoring. That wasn't directly affecting them, but, they were content. And then, oh, yeah, that problem we ignored, it's become a big problem now.
Yeah. There's a lot of commentary about government going on in Arcane.
Yeah, and, we obviously also see commentary on, like, policing, with how the most effective police officer is someone who stops being a police officer nearly immediately and is like, I've got to do independent stuff, work outside the law, and actually try and make a difference.
We spent like 10 minutes talking about the show, and we never really directly addressed Caitlin or Vi.
Yeah, and this is the point, is like, it's also commentary on like how Caitlin and Vi, also it's like, okay, once you see a different perspective, that kind of helps a lot. And seeing perspective of people and how people have to live, like Caitlin is a daughter of a politician who, gets a job, but so it has that bit of a rebellious thing where it's like, okay, I'm not going to just do this. I want to actually work. I don't want to just, have a desk job, a nepo position. I want to actually, make a change. And the way she goes about it, and even though it's like begrudgingly at first and slowly over time, you see that evolution, you tell like generally, oh yeah, Kate tries to be a good person. And I mean, then you kind of see how it makes sense that, yeah, Kate and Vi so lesbian. It makes sense. You see through interactions and the animation on some of those scenes where you see, hey Vi, what are you feeling right now? Hey Kate, why are you glancing down at Vi's lips in this moment, huh? The subtle animations, and it's so good. Like, you just see, like the attention to detail as well in these scenes to really emphasize how these two characters are feeling about each other right now.
I mean, the bed scene of the two of them.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Maya, very, very hungry over there. And it's great.
So good.
Yeah, and it's great because they juxtapose that with Jinx's scene of having to be operated on under, heavy amounts of sugar, and the mental state that she is in, and her mental stability getting even worse. Like,
no,
it's great.
I thought of a really bad joke.
Let's talk about our, Forts season 2, maybe even. We're pretty far in. What do you guys think? Oh my. TV 14, this podcast.
Ostensibly.
So we want to talk about our thoughts, or I don't even know what thoughts means.
Thoughts is the segment we've been on. Spoilers was just for the spoiler line.
Oh, we said a lot of spoilers in thoughts. Anyway, what about season 2 then?
I'm looking forward to it. I've actually not kept that much up with it. I've seen a couple of things about it. I've watched one of the clips.
Yeah, I saw that clip too. Yeah, I think it'll be really good. It'll be interesting to see how they go with it. Obviously, the ending of season 1 has big implications, and we're going to see it. In terms of season 2, I think there is something that the collective fandom is begging for. It's pretty gay. But they're saying, hey, Jason Mel got one. You got to give, Vi and Kate one. Come on now. Don't be cowards.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that will happen eventually at some point in this show. I'm not certain if it'll happen in season 2.
No, because season 2 is going to be big depression hours, in my opinion. But you never know, because, you wouldn't say in episode 1 or 2 that, in a few episodes, Jason Mel would be there. And that's the thing about Arcane, is the story moves very fast and very slow at the same time.
Yeah.
So you never know. Like, we're looking at it and thinking, oh, is this going to be like a 3-episode depression? Like, there will obviously be depression, it's Arcane. But it's like, will this specific depression take a episode, 3 episodes, 6 or 9 to come over? And they have a lot of different ways to go at it. So
Yeah, we'll see how normal I am when season 2 drops. Probably roughly this November.
You'll be
spoiler alert.
You'll be a goddamn gremlin.
Yes.
More so than usual.
Which is, I know, viewers, listeners, somehow unbelievable.
You call them viewers too. I'm not weird for getting it wrong.
I mean, they can watch us on YouTube. They can watch the still screen. Yeah.
I think it's not entirely still. I think it generates a waveform.
Yeah,
so there's some visual interest.
Yeah, I'm correct. You're the fool here, Maya.
Mind you, I'm not sure. I think most of our viewers, God damn it.
It's an infection.
Most of our audience.
Yes, most of our audience, I think, is not on YouTube, based on the stats.
So, Maya, do you have anything else you want to say about season 2?
Oh God, that's gonna come out while I'm in grad school. Fuck.
Anything else about it?
Your brain is going to melt.
Yes.
We have one final point to get to. What they did wrong. In my opinion, they did a lot right. In terms of the wrong, I don't know. It's not something I've ever given thought to, or things like when I've done my many rewatches, like, oh yeah, this part.
Okay, so you call me gremlin and insane for this thing, but here's the thing: I've only rewatched Arcane like twice, maybe 3 times total.
Oh, I've watched it it's been 2 full years and a bit. I probably watched it 6-7 times.
You're more normal about it than I am.
I mean, yeah, it's because I don't spend all hours writing fan or reading fan fiction. I literally only interact with the show and maybe read some Reddit. That's my interaction with the show.
Okay, that's fair. I am in at least 3 Discords related to Arcane.
Yeah.
Okay, 4. I don't really count the 4th one because that was to show someone I was interested in the show, and they kind of ended up ghosting me. So,
oh my! But yeah, in terms of what people think they did right or wrong, I can't say wrong. There are obviously flaws about the show. There are moments where you go, that's a little weird. But in general, it's nothing. I feel it would be nitpicking. And nitpicking is never
we would
fun.
Absolutely be nitpicking.
Yeah. If you want to say about right, there's too many to list.
Yeah, I would have liked some more time with Victor and with Jinx. I think they could have used a little bit more time with some of their stories. I think they could have used more stuff about them. Maybe I'm a little bit heretical for this one, but I feel a little bit like when the story is kind of about, you have your face scientist and your theory scientist, your guy who can talk to other human beings, and then your guy who's really smart but hates people, which is actually a not uncommon dynamic in the sciences. I don't know, I would have liked more with that, and this is not to say there's really anything wrong, I don't know.
That's just you being scientist pilled.
That is me being a scientist.
Yeah.
And wanting more time with the scientists, and wanting more time with Jinx and her perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the number one thing they did wrong that everyone's going to agree with: not enough women loving women.
That's your complaint.
We could have used more of that.
What do we need these male cast members for?
What I will say is I think the performances of all the cast are great. But all the performances I think are wonderful. I'm always a simp for Harry Lloyd, who is Victor's voice actor. He, a guy who is in this show, Xenoblade, and Game of Thrones. Oh, 3 thumbs up. You know? So, do we have anything else to talk about? Or
if we're talking about voice actors, or well, voice actress in this case, Haley Steinfeld, the voice of Vi. She's great. I want more stuff with her in it.
Did you watch Hawkeye?
Yes, I did. Best part of Hawkeye.
Yeah.
She's also in the amazing Spider-Man. She's like, I guess, a pattern of being in fucking phenomenal animated content because
yeah,
across the Spider-Verse and Arcane. So, Ian, do we have anything in the mailbag today?
Unfortunately, once again, we do not have any mail. So, if you want to join the conversation on Arcane, tell us what you have liked about this show, or if you have any additional nitpicks to share. Our email address is fanfictapes@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment on our aforementioned YouTube channel. We would also appreciate it if you would leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And you can also reach out to us on social media. We have a Twitter account for some godforsaken reason. And Maya runs
yes, that. I do. It is at Fanfiction Tapes, capital F, no spaces, dashes, or anything. As if it were just one long word. There's also a capital T where you might expect a capital T. I post about episodes on there. I shitpost sometimes. But if you enjoy the show, please let us know, because otherwise we don't know. And that is something that always brings a smile to our faces. Like, literally, I think the last time we got an email about the show, I was smiling for a week.
Yes, please let us know that you listen to and like this show. It's good for our egos.
It inflates our egos. I don't know if that could be called good for it, but...
The world is depressing. I need all the help I can get.
Fair enough. Well, before we go, what is our episode topic next time?
Next week, we will be talking about AUs.
And our guest next week is going to be Cam, once again, as we talk about That's Not How It Happened. I'm looking forward to this one. Well, folks, I am and have been Maya, and I was joined by...
I am and always will be Dylan.
And I am Ian. Until next time, bye.